Conquer the Noise is a podcast produced by Unconquered, an independent agency challenging brand perspective through redefined content. This podcast is dedicated to telling stories of outstanding ideas and people who have found their way amongst the chatter. I'm Jonathan Hansen, Chief Creative Officer at Unconquered, and I'm your host of Cultivating Purpose and Passion in Business. Today, we're speaking with Oliver Tomalin, founder of UK-based clothing company Love Brand & Co., who's committed to saving elephants through their clothing line. Oliver, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan.
So you're calling in from the UK this morning. How is everything there?
The sun's shining, making a change, and the mood in the UK is, considering everything, quite positive, I would say. With respects to the pandemic and everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Today, the sun's shining, and I think everyone's in quite a good mood.
Yeah, it's New York. Is up on the up and up. You can really see like spirits changing. People are talking to each other. The first 2 months of the pandemic, everyone just sort of looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes suspiciously, like, are you going to give me this disease? And now when you walk by, people actually smile and say hi. A lot of times you can't see the smile with the mask, but you can see it in the eyes. And there's this general feeling of positive, positivity going through the city, which is really nice and a welcome change.
Absolutely.
New Yorkers are still a little cautious of outside travelers, and it seems like the UK has opened up, the EU has opened up travel. So have you seen a little bit more of travel across Europe?
I mean, to be honest with you, we've just been launching a pop-up shop. So I've been kind of smiling through my eyes over a mask as well at our new customers. I don't know if you know the shopping destination called Bicester Village. It's in Oxfordshire in the UK. And so we're doing a pop-up this summer, and I've been completely immersed in that. So I haven't actually seen the sort of outside world in a few weeks, but I think you're right. I think in the UK and in the EU in general, things are moving now, and I think there's definitely willingness to start traveling again and to try and get a couple of holidays in, which for us in holiday apparel, it's a positive sign.
So to travel, looking through your clothing line, a lot of the imagery, it's all really seems travel focused, leisure, adventure. I have to imagine that love for you started a lot earlier in your life, or it was a result of some sort of travel adventure. Am I right there?
You are. I mean, I often sort of have to pinch myself and sort of ask myself, how did I and why do I sell swimming trunks, especially swimming trunks committed to helping elephants? It's so random. I was before this, reading architecture with definitely the plan of becoming an architect for the rest of my life. But then it all changed, and but prior to that, I feel I was very fortunate to travel with my parents, who lived overseas quite a lot of the time. And so I definitely got the bug for travel and culture and just experiences beyond, my own village or community. So it's sort of in the genes to travel and explore, and that definitely comes through the brand and what we do in one of the pillars. But to sort of pick up the story from the university, it all kind of pivoted when I did my placement, as part of part of an architecture degree, you work in practice. And as great as the experience was, I just looked around me and I realized that, I could see my whole career in that room, and I didn't want to do that. And there was an entrepreneurial spirit in me that wanted to create something new and be a little bit more adventurous. And so I decided to go back to an idea I had when I was actually in Spain to import espadrilles, which is like a rope-soled summer shoe. And I basically got those in every color in the rainbow and sold them on Portobello Road in Notting Hill one sunny weekend. And I really enjoyed it. The whole sales, and the people skills, all the characters that I met, and I felt like I was really living. And I from that moment, I don't think I ever had a thought again at kind of pursuing my dreams for architecture. That said, I would absolutely love to, and I love all aspects of design, and I sort of consult friends and things, but in terms of just a solid single vocation for the rest of my life is just not something that I wanted to do. And that's nothing against architecture. It's one of the most amazing vocations you can possibly do. So yeah, it's a really random series of events in my life that led to me getting into retail. No one in my family's in retail. I didn't have any friends in the trade, and my father's in banking, and my grandparents are all doctors, and it was quite a shock, I suppose, for my parents and for my friends when I suddenly said to everyone, I'm going to take the whole summer lifestyle thing seriously and start a swimwear brand. And and at that point, it was, it's a very competitive space, a lot of, well, everything is, and especially retail. And I wanted to, to find something unique about our brand, and I was searching for something. I also had this idea that I wanted the brand to do something positive, and it was again a rather serendipitous moment in my life when I was thinking these thoughts, and I literally walked out my front door and I saw these painted elephants. This goes back like 10 years now, and these painted elephants were raising awareness for endangered Asian elephants, and the main lines were that in the last 100 years, 90% of this incredible species has disappeared, and in the next 25 years, perhaps less now, they could be gone forever. And I've always loved elephants, I think, as a child, and I think a lot of people have an affinity with elephants, being our largest land mammal, and they're so clever and gentle, and I think so majestic and beautiful in so many ways. That just struck a chord, and I said, that's it. I'm going to dedicate my swimwear brand to saving elephants, and that was the beginning of the last 10 years, and every day since I've been passionately pursuing this brand and our mission to help save endangered elephants, and be a vehicle for raising awareness for endangered species.
So in those earlier years of travel with your family and later on, I'm sure on your own and with friends, did you experience any sort of wildlife elephants up close that really helped cement that cause at an earlier stage?
Yes, so actually, my father was brought up in South Africa, so he lived there most of his young adult life and his childhood, and so when he had us, my sister and I, although we were living in the UK and actually subsequently the Caribbean, New Zealand, Tokyo, Hong Kong, the Middle East. That's our kind of journey around the world in the first few decades of my life. We often went back to South Africa as a important place in my father's life, and felt very lucky to experience African wildlife firsthand on safari, throughout. So I think definitely that stuck. When you see the beautiful creatures in the wild, right there firsthand, it leaves an everlasting memory for sure.
Yeah, I did in 2000, I don't know, 13, 14. I spent a month traveling through Thailand, and went and saw elephants in the jungles, and did one of the experiences where you can like ride the elephants and feed them, and as you go through the jungle. And I think going into it, I had a really romantic idea of what that was going to be, but then when I saw the way that the elephants were actually being treated by the keepers, the way that they are trying to like coerce them, or get them to do certain things, I realized there's definitely a kind of a harsh physical, I don't want to say abusive, but from my lens, it looked somewhat abusive. it really changed my perception of like those experiences and that whole like side of tourism in Asia around elephants. And it was really concerning. And afterwards, I felt pretty terrible about it. And I think like an issue that I don't think people really are super aware of. And so the work that you're doing with elephants, what does that specifically have to do with in their lifespan? Is it on like a reserve in Africa, or what part of is it in Asia? I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, you're so right to have felt the way you felt. There's a lot of shadows in the kind of ecotourism arena, especially in that part of the world where I think some elephants are being very badly abused, and there are good ones and there are bad ones, and I think it's down to the individual when recommending where to go on your holiday or vacation, to really look into what you're supporting, because you could be indirectly funding the bad guys. I think from my standpoint, we are all about preserving the wild. So we don't work with any of these sanctuaries or organizations that have domestic elephants. We are promoting wild landscapes and wild elephants within those habitats. And we work currently with an amazing organization and charity called the Seldrick Wildlife Trust. They're based in Kenya, just outside Nairobi. They have their famed and amazing pioneering orphanage, which essentially rescues orphaned elephants that would be subject to poaching, or perhaps their mother might be maybe they fell down a well, or maybe some rail or road infrastructure would have separated them from their herd, and they're left essentially for dead in the wild. And the air surveillance picked this up, and they rescue these very vulnerable baby elephants if it sadly comes to be this way, and they rear them with a one-on-one keeper in this nursery, and then they reintroduce them very, very carefully back to the wild. And it's an amazing organization. They don't just do that orphanage side, they also work across all Kenyan wildlife conservation, and they're one of the most I think they're the oldest wildlife charity in Kenya, and they're also one of the most respected. So we work with them this year. I think it is really important for us who we work with, and just making sure that our community, our fans, our customers know that we're supporting the right projects and having the most impact. As I said before, there are charities and there are charities. There are wildlife organizations that are profiteering, and there are ones that are just purely looking to ensure the survival of these amazing creatures and all of the biodiversity around them for generations to come. And that is what I'm all about, and what Love Brand's all about. It's very much this sense of family. And I have a son and a daughter, and I ask myself, what kind of world are we going to leave behind? And for me, it is all about trying to improve it for them, and ensure that there are these beautiful wild places that they can enjoy. And also, by respecting and keeping these wild places, the planet will, of course, be so much healthier as a result.
Hmm. I'm in a similar boat as you as far as small business owner, entrepreneur. Took a career change to refocus and want to question what I was doing. And I think that's always hard to come to those realizations and ask yourself those hard questions and then actually act on it. It's a whole nother thing. It sounds like passion plays like a really big role in your life or your business. And I'm curious to how that has influenced the success you've had so far.
Yeah, I think 100%. This is a passion project. Both on on all of the pillars of the brand. I design everything, and that's my design background coming through. I've always been very interested in creating things, making things, and I learned on the job that I enjoy selling things, but also meeting people, um, and and then giving back, and the whole thing's been such an incredible journey. As I reflect a sort of 10-year anniversary now.
Well,
Um,
congrats.
Thank you very much. I definitely didn't think. Well, I hoped that I believed that this was something that was interesting, and we definitely gave it everything we've got. And that, as that answers your question, is that I think without that passion, it would have been totally unsustainable. That's what's allowed us to persist all these times and overcome all the hurdles that you face. Creating a new brand in a ever-changing landscape and marketplace. It's been such an extraordinary adventure, and we've learned a huge amount. And I think what's important is that we've learned it ourselves. I've always believed that. I don't know whether it's my own stubbornness, or what it is exactly, but I just didn't want to be told. So I wanted to learn for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have, and I'm very happy to admit, I've made my fair share of mistakes, but I think luckily I made more good decisions than bad, and we got through year on year. And what we have as a result is a very personal, very authentic project that our fans are really very much a part of. And it's not a plug in and play brand or solution to make a profit. It's the complete upside down of that. We actually created the brand on a promise that we knew wouldn't be profitable for a very long time. And so that's interesting, our perspective on our giving model as well, and how that's evolved. But I think the whole journey has been an evolution. We started just really wanting to make sure everyone understood how important elephant survival is, but then what we realized as we got into this whole world and industry is that there are so many other things that we can do, and I feel like our brand is a hub for so many things: creativity, people, community, friends. And I think we enter strange years in front of us, and I think brands have an important role to play in the future.
Yeah, it's just reading through a lot of the initiatives you're involved in. It does really seem like an evolution, and as you grow, as a business grows, there's more you're doing. And I found the emphasis on getting rid of some of the dyes in your manufacturing process really interesting. I had actually never heard of this, but the printing of your patterns on your clothing is done differently to reduce some of the ecological impacts. Is that right?
That's right. So, I mean, to go back to the start, we created a good quality product with a super message, and as the business has developed, as our experience level grown, we have just evaluated every step of the way how we can improve essentially, and how we can be more less in our environmental impact in the processes that we have. And one of the improvements we've made is with our dyeing of our swimming trunks, which is our hero product. So the bathing suits that we have printed in lots of amazing, colorful prints, all with lots of extra narrative. My wife and I, really enjoyed that part of this business, as well as designing the prints and naming them, and creating prints with narratives that are also more meaningful than just a pattern. But each one's a story of its own, so I won't give too much detail on that. But the actual process itself, we now use a process called sublimation, which is a much more environmentally friendly process, where you don't need any water and there's no waste, and it's essentially just transferred. Whereas the previous conventional rotary printing that we did uses a lot of water and is more wasteful. So, and there's always improvements that we can make. I think one of the breakthroughs for us was moving our production to Spain, and part of our well, we produce now in Spain and Portugal, so really the whole of the Iberian Peninsula is where we look to manufacture things. And they really are very good at men's and a lot of the technical side of swim and men's clothing, shirting and shoes and accessories. There's lots of very, very good experience and knowledge there, and amazing textiles as well. So we've moved there in the last sort of 3 years. And we, the guys that are there are very excited, and we excite each other about learning about the latest innovations in fabrics and processes. And the guys that make our linen shorts in Spain are now using they're using pistachio shells to actually heat the building in the winter, and small things like that. And there's just a general feeling throughout our supply chain, and it's wonderful to also know them all by name and by face, that you can who's making what, and they're all in their own way looking to evolve the Love brand supply chain to be greener and better as we grow the business.
Yeah, it seems like community is a big part of your business, and just hearing you speak to your supply chain, how important those people are in the process, how you've really tried to nurture community as far as rallying people around a specific cause, both environmental and for the betterment of animals and wildlife. How has that played in your decision making process? It sounds like community is always top of mind for you. Is that the case? Do you find yourself really focusing on the people around you, and that's what really helps propel this brand forward as well?
100%. It's very much about the people. From my wife, who's my biggest fan and the brand's biggest fan, and a co-founder, and she's been the sounding board throughout, all the way to the guys in our fulfillment house, picking our e-com business and sending that out, and the guys that we talk to carbon offset our online orders thereafter. But throughout the supply chain, we're really interested. We're actually looking at doing a piece to show the customer more about this, and actually kind of meet the maker and meet the farmer. I can take you right back to the flax field in France, where the flax is grown, and the terroir that's there, and why, and how it's the best, and that will create the best linen that we can source in the given crop. And then we create these beautiful shirts in the north of Portugal, and a lovely part of the Portuguese countryside, and then sell, and they're worn, most importantly, all over the world. And I think the community extends on to where you go, and the customers, and the travels and the adventures that our customer has. And we're so honored and excited by everyone that discovers the brand and loves the brand and takes their products in their packs of products in their bag, and goes on a life-changing adventure with the brand.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people assume all these initiatives are like incredibly expensive and are hard to make a business profitable as a result. The fact that you're in Europe there's definitely a different cultural tone, I think, to business, and than like the American like values that are often touted here of get the best deal, be the strongest, make the bottom line is what matters. And I think a lot of that is being challenged with these new generations of business. And I definitely think, Love Brand is a part of that. But, is that the case? Are you finding that these are expensive, that people have to make sacrifices, or is this something that's just kind of a no-brainer?
So when we started, it was very much I asked, could I have the recycled tag, and can I have the recycled or the greener option? And they were more expensive, and there was longer lead times, and it wasn't accessible or necessarily that financially viable. And that's why we've evolved these things. Is when I developed the brand originally, we couldn't get those numbers to work, but in the last 10 years, with all of the development that's happened, I feel like it's all come together. I feel like our aspiration and the demands of the marketplace and the landscape has moved closer together. So the market moving away, I feel people are moving towards, wanting greater transparency and understanding of the ethics behind a brand and the values. I think to have a give back model like we do with 1% for the planet is a sustainable thing for a lot of businesses. And I think 1% for the planet is a incredible movement. It started in America with the founder of Patagonia, a brand that I hugely admire, and many individuals and companies are following. And I think, other businesses, I feel, will be like the dinosaurs, and if you don't evolve, you'll be extinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we joined 1% for the planet, I think 2 years ago, and have really just loved what they're doing, and have made some really great relationships just within the organization of people who share similar values. A lot of the causes we focus on are like clean water and food initiatives. But I think as we grow, we're probably going to start expanding that into some other areas. I would love to hear and talk through the idea of like brand values. It sounds like you have really strong brand values. And I think one of the things, and that's really hard for people right now, is with the amount of media that's out there now, is having to churn out consistent and constant content. And looking at your Instagram, it's beautiful. There's just gorgeous lifestyle photography from all over the world. I know it feels like I'm on vacation, or that I want to be on vacation when looking through your imagery. And I'm curious to how you balance like the competing needs of maintaining those brand values while also trying to answer the questions of like having constant content, having this, I hate to use the word machine, but, way of continually pushing out your message.
Yeah, of course. I think we go into extraordinary times, and actually 10 years ago, I was, as I sort of said at the start of the podcast, that I'm actually a bit of a technophobe, and I kind of online was something that we did on the side. The first thing I wanted to do was dust off my own store in London and have bricks and mortar and talk to people, write people letters, pick up the phone. I wasn't on Facebook. This is all. It was literally that's where I was mentally, and it's amazing my own personal journey with social media and media in general, and the internet is just phenomenal. Connected now, and it's a fascinating, very complex thing that's evolving as fast as we could possibly try to analyze it, and it's very exciting, but also you have to be aware of it as well. I think with regards to balancing the kind of content and the demands, I'm so delighted, by the way, and thank you for the compliment on our Instagram. I feel like we've got a lot further to go at really, and that's just me as the founder being slow on the social scene. But we've definitely always wanted it to be a bit of a virtual, like digital detox. So if you can't go on holiday, it's a lovely place to go and just spend some time and, hopefully be inspired for travel, but also be reminded about the endangered wildlife and the beauty of the planet that we all coexist on through that feed. But I think what we're looking to do more of is more user generated, go and see the projects that we're supporting, share more of them in and enjoying and our products. And I think you'll start hopefully to see that coming in the next months. And I think it will go even further. I feel, you know, pillars wise, we know exactly who we are now. We didn't know that at the beginning, and we tried things, and I think you shouldn't be afraid to try things. But after trialing and failing certain things, in trial and error, we understand exactly who we are. We understand exactly who our customer is and who our fan is, and we can just very organically grow that fan base with people that care about wildlife, that have an adventurous traveling spirit and care about where things are made, and they're discerning about style and all of the and they love family, and these are kind of the key underpinning pillars of our brand. And but I do say, Jonathan, and I say this quite a lot, is that if you want to save the planet, save elephants in our case, then you can donate directly to the David Seldrick, as it's now called, the Seldrick Wildlife Trust, or any of our other partners, and many, many other good ones too. But if you want to help save elephants and get involved in a really cool brand, then Love Brand's the answer.
What I've seen, you and I both seen this shift in brands as they are either evolving, have been around for a long time, or they're starting up, and there's definitely just been like this shift towards green. Some of it's genuine, some of it I think is just marketing speak. What do you think is the future for brands that like don't prioritize sustainability, or don't prioritize some sort of brand value to help differentiate themselves from their competitors?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, like I was saying before, I do believe that this isn't a fad. This is a general shift, which has been accelerated by the pandemic, but it was happening already, and it will continue to happen. That people just understand now that we cannot go on creating so much waste. We cannot go on actively, and I think brands that don't genuinely respond to that will eventually, they'll peter out. I think a lot of brands are saying all the right things, but actually not necessarily doing anything. They're just putting the tick in the box, and that's not okay. But that's that will get them by for now. But eventually, customers will demand that they show their credentials with certificates or with audits. And I appreciate with bigger businesses, it takes time. I mean, as a startup, we could just go from a still start straight where we wanted to go, and we wanted to embrace this type of brand. And for other brands, if you're like a speedboat, you could turn really quickly. But the bigger guys are like the ferries, and they appreciate it takes a long time for a ferry to do a full turn and go in the other direction. So we've got to give them time, but at the same time, it's just got to be genuine. I think that's what the consumer is going to be able to sniff out very quickly, is if a brand's taking sustainability seriously, or whether it's just saying it, and like you say, it's greenwashing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started really talking about it when we founded the company, what we wanted our goals to be, what we wanted our give back portion of our business to be, to how we can use commerce for good. And it led to the 1%, our membership with 1% for the planet, and it's led to some other just internal initiatives. But where do you think it starts? For us, it was really we were starting a new business, right? So we were able to really start with a bigger idea in mind. But for people who are either, mid-career, 10 years, 5 years into their business, and they're just now thinking about this, as far as when I say this, I mean sustainability and environmental efforts, and even give back programs that are
Yeah.
not just focused on the environment. Where can they start? Where do you see a first step for them being?
So I think it all depends on how you define sustainability, and I define it as a sort of willingness and caring, really. And I think if you can start with caring, and genuinely just looking at any situation and having a motive, responsible, caring objective to that situation, and then have the willingness as well to do something to improve it, then that's my own little, anecdotal thing that I sort of have tried to you know, employ at Love Brand is that, given each step, I think it's little by little, is to answer the question. I think step at a time. I think if you asked someone to change overnight, it would never work. But if you could encourage them to evolve over time towards a greater destination, then they might take you up on the offer. So I think what I tried to do, and what we've done so far, and it's by no means the end. This is just the beginning. We've just looked at each question and said, can we answer that in a more sustainable way than we've done before? Can we improve that? Can this be better for our people? Can this be better for the planet? And I think that's just a mindset, and I think it's a very empowering one. It really defines everything that we've done, and ever since we've sort of understood that's our mindset, is when our people start giving even more, and the planet's starting to get more back from us as well.
Mhm. Um, so going back into, I shouldn't say going back to, but looking forward, what do you think, like, about the green pledges? Are you familiar with the green pledges businesses are making, and how you think, like, that's going to take shape in the next 10 years? You think, I mean, 2030 seems so far away, and in reality, it really isn't that far.
Yeah, sure. No,
You know,
I think it really isn't that far away. I think in retail terms, we have to think seasons and years ahead, and in business terms, often you're planning years and years ahead, and 2030 really isn't that far away. I think for domestic decisions, it's way off. I wouldn't decide where I was going on holiday in 2030, but I would decide what my business wants to be doing in 2030. And I think that's a really important thing for the business community. I think we need to understand it's just around the corner, and that we need to act today. I think we need to all make the change as soon as possible. I think people aren't reacting fast enough. It's too easy to just push it back to tomorrow, and this will not go away. We have to understand that our whole attitude towards the planet needs to shift fundamentally, and I think business community has a responsibility to take that very seriously.
so staying on the topic of the future, I mean, that's a lot of what our conversation is about, is really helping ensure a positive future for your kids, our kids, the rest of our community. Um, how are you educating your children right now, going through being sustainable, environmentally safe, and I mean, are you bringing them into the business? Would you like them to take on Love Brand?
I hadn't actually really ever thought about that. My kids are 3 and 1, so they're quite little. But I think for my wife and I, it's all about immersing them in nature. We used to live in London, and we've moved out of London when we had our son, and I think we very much made a conscious decision that we wanted them to grow up around nature, and that's a start. And I think to the future, my general belief, for what it's worth, is that my son will hopefully do what he wants to do, and I will definitely not tell him or be overly influencing his decision or path in life, like my dad didn't. And I think it's so important to follow your passions and your dreams. I know it's cheesy, but it really is, because I don't do it. I don't work. I say this as a joke quite often. I genuinely don't see the days as work days. I just see it as my life, and I just love what I do, and my wife and I, we're our business life and our personal life is so intertwined, but it works for us, and it's sustainable because we are so passionate about what we're doing, and it's so exciting to do it together, and that will, I'm sure, rub off on our children in some way, because we do bring it home with us, because we can't not. I mean, if you're running a small business, it's 24/7. Don't really, it never sleeps. So and it's but I yeah, I suppose I don't know what the future holds, and I worry about it. I think since having children, I worry a lot more, and I think that in some ways accelerating my want to make more impact through the work that we're doing, to try and be a positive force if we can be. Of course, we're a tiny boutique swimwear brand. We're not going to be able to change the world, but we can do our bit to help. And I think that's an important message when it comes to environmental issues. Is it's very easy to say, well, I'm just one person and this is a planet thing, and that disproportion, it could be some barrier that you can excuse yourself from. It's all up to all of us to do the small things, and then together we can make a massive difference.
Yeah, I think being open to your kid's path really does set them up for success. I mean, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience. My parents were never like, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. They were always really supportive and encouraging for me to explore the things that I was interested in. And I think as a result, I'm in a position now where I feel the same. I own my own small business. We do it because we love it. I will disagree. There are moments where it definitely feels like work, when you're drudging through taxes and all the small details of finances of running a business. It definitely feels like work, especially when you're a creative. So when you want to check out and you're done with the business stuff for the day, and you just want to take a holiday, where do you love to travel?
Well, so we actually don't that, because we go to, so I mean, people imagine that we would race to the jungle, and obviously we love going to see wildlife, and we do that with work. So for us, actually, and also, sorry, the same goes for beaches. Is that you would imagine that we'd love racing to the beach, but I love the beach, and I love exploring the natural world. But actually, for us, just to go on a little weekend, on a little city break, and have delicious local food and meet local people, and do sort of very simple days, and just exploring together outside of the main themes of our brand, is probably the best for our general kind of health, because it's if you're on a beach, I'm thinking about designing the next season's swim shorts, because that's where it all kicks in. And if we go to somewhere with huge with lots of species and endangered species, that we start thinking we have to support this species and that species. We've got to do our bit to help. So we've just got to avoid the coast and animal.
So where does that leave you?
Well, with kind of urban places, I suppose.
Okay.
Or the middle of nowhere. I mean, that would be a so we could
I can't wait to travel again. I don't know what your living situation is, but being in New York City, ours are very cramped and small, and I am itching to get out. My friends growing up always told me I had itchy feet because I had to keep moving, I had to keep traveling. Travel was a huge part of my development as a person and helped really, I think, steer me in my career path in a way. Um, my early years, like I started out as a photographer before opening the agency, and my camera was like just a really an excuse to go places and to see things and to go places I technically wasn't supposed to, whether it's in the kitchen of a restaurant in Bangkok or backstage at a boxing match or whatever. I just always try to use that as a way to experience new things. And now I find myself doing the same thing with the agency, but now I get to dig in and those experiences. There's still a lot of travel, but they tend to change a little bit. Now it's really about learning things in a different way and applying creative problem solving and like really trying to dig in and find the meaning of things, I think. And so as we like wrap up here, I would love to hear more about your involvement with 1% for the Planet, because they've been a huge support of this podcast. They put us in contact with each other, which I'm really thankful for. So I would love for you to maybe share just a few things about 1% and how you've been working with them.
Yeah, of course. So 1% actually are a relatively new partner for Love Brand & Co. I'll quickly, if I may, go back to the start of when I founded the brand and that story of when I saw those painted elephants. And immediately after seeing that message that wild elephants could be extinct in my lifetime, what are you going to do about it? And it spoke to me. I went to the charity behind it and I said to them, I want to dedicate my aspiration for a little brand towards elephant conservation, and I want to give, I want to contribute to your charity. What sort of amount would be helpful? Of course, they answered anything would be helpful, and I said, no, what as far as to have a corporate partnership, what would it be? And they said an amount that I worked back from to kind of with my rough projection on it was very sort of back of an envelope back then on what sales could be like in that first year. I ended up creating a model of 5% of revenue to the charity. So 5% of revenue, not profits, would be donated to elephant conservation. And what this did was it meant that we were giving quite sizable, relatively sizable donations to our charity partners. And that definitely contributed to a great relationship with the partners and the charities, an undisputed sort of authenticity behind the project, because we really put our money where our mouth was. But so much money, in fact, Jonathan, that perhaps it was an unsustainable model, and we didn't have the financial resources to really grow the business. So we found ourselves kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, where we're giving all of the cash that we had to the conservation effort, but we weren't able to grow the revenue pot to grow the donation pot. So I was searching for a solution to this, and I was really, very reluctant to give up on my 5%. But I had realized in my heart of hearts that it was an unsustainable model. And that's when I found 1% for the Planet. And so coming into 1% for the Planet from a 5%er, and I'm the only person I think in the world who was a 5%er, and that movement didn't go particularly well. Although I did try and convince a few people, they thought that quite rightly that I was completely crazy. But 1%, from my experience, is quite unique in that regard, and I can say wholeheartedly that 1% is an achievable number. Of course, for me, we've suddenly got 4 extra percent to drive into growing our business and growing what that 1% will be year on year. So we designed our business on 5, and so going to 1 was easy. I understand for businesses that have never given a penny or a cent to charity that 1% could be a daunting amount, but it's definitely not. It is a sustainable model, as you know, that will empower your people, will engage your audience, will give you purpose. And I think if you can go to sleep at night saying, if every business was giving 1% back to this planet, wouldn't have a problem. So you're part of the solution, not the problem. I think for me, when you look back, rather, um, you know, I mean, I'm talking about my last 10 years, but for others that look back on their whole careers, I think it would be a lovely thing to feel like you contributed and that you've left the planet in a healthier, better, improved place than when you started. And that I think should is my goal. And I think hopefully we can all, and 1% definitely do this, inspire others to make that the shared goal of many.
Yeah, I think it is amazing how um, I think on the flip side of that, like people may say 1% isn't very much. What good is that going to do? And I think when I first started, when we first started as a company, started participating 1% for the planet, my first question in my mind was like, well, how's 1% gonna make an impact? But then as your business really grows, and you start seeing that number get bigger and bigger, you really realize how fast that adds up, and how collectively, if you have, you know, hundreds of businesses giving 1% of their revenue, um, that it can add up to a significant amount pretty quickly. So I encourage like all the businesses, whether you're a startup or um, 10 years, 20 years in, it's not too late to participate in either 1% for the planet or some sort of corporate giving program. And if they want to learn more, they can go to the 1% for the planet website. And then if you want to support Love Brand, they can go to your website as well. And then you have 2 locations in the UK. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. Sorry, we'll be opening, I hope, in the States soon, but we're online at lovebrand.com.
And where are you thinking about, just for my own curiosity, where are you thinking about opening in the US? You're going to be here in New York? You're going to go to the other coast, or?
I think well, we've explored it tentatively, and I think perhaps Florida as a first step, and then I would love I'd love something in New York. I'm a big believer, for what it's worth, that although e-commerce is clearly going to be and is the main retail channel for businesses, um, it's important to have those physical environments for customers to really engage with the business and brand, and really understand, especially brands like us, which have such a story to tell, and we see ourselves very much as not just a clothing brand, but as a platform for engaging people with wildlife conservation. And I should say also, my wife's launching a club, a sort of multi-brand component as our evolution continues. We're launching soon, later this month or early July, Love Brand Club, which is going to be a curation of all sorts of wonderful, small, sustainable or purposeful brands that we've found along our journey so far, and we pull them together into this lovely edit. It's all holiday centered, but she's done an amazing job, and that will be available online as well. So you can find not just men's stuff, but stuff for everybody as well, because of course we've always restricted ourselves to being a men's label.
So I love that idea. Is that going to be like a marketplace?
Essentially, it's we see it as a retail and almost as a media channel, as a platform for raising awareness for all of these incredible projects. They all have amazing stories to tell, so we'll be launching a blog alongside that. And my wife said it's sort of small. It started with a small collection of labels that we know well, and we wanted sport that sort of work alongside the Love Brand aesthetic. But online, the possibilities are endless, and it could hopefully grow into more of a sort of definitive holiday marketplace for eco-conscious and purposeful brands, that and one-off pieces. It's all about promoting artisanal or single one-offs rather than the mass-produced uh, alternatives.
Mhm. Well, Oliver, thank you so much for spending the day or afternoon with us and talking through sustainability, mission-based business, and how people can help really funnel their passions into business. We appreciate the time.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Jonathan, and may I congratulate you on your channel and agency. I think it's excellent, and thank you so much for your time. And I wish you a lovely day in New York City.
Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today and listening to our conversation with Oliver. I thought he had some really wonderful insight in how he infuses his purpose and passion into business. He really, you can tell, is committed to the cause and believes deeply in what he's doing. And I hope that if you're going to go on vacation or need some new swimwear, that you can help support him and the efforts that they're making towards the environment and saving elephants. I think for me personally, I have found that his story to be like really useful and inspiring as we continue to produce this podcast and helping find important angles and stories to uncover. If you have any suggestions, if you have any companies, if you have any leaders that you are interested in hearing more about, please let us know and we will do our best to feature them. Thank you so much.